Hawaiian, Afghan, Arabian, or any related ethnicity he chose. Farad had coping problems in both worlds. Living as a white man in California in the 1920s, he was arrested several times as a drug dealer and eventually sentenced to prison. By the same token, living as a black man in the early 1930s, he was arrested several times as a religious charlatan.
Alright, look, y'all, check this out, right? Let's say that Farad, let's say this correct, that he was selling dope and shit. Let's say he was selling dope. Let's just say he was selling dope. Personally, I could give a shit if he was selling dope. As long as what he did to uplift a downtrodden race of people, that's all I got to. That's all I'm caring about. But for somebody to be a drug dealer and then take people off of drugs, stop women from prostituting, the shit just don't add up to me, y'all. I'm trying to understand this shit because I'm trying to see both sides. I wanna view it from this biased side of what I'm playing right now. Then I want to view it from what Elijah Muhammad had to say. But I want to view it from a pure state of consciousness, not from a biased side of taking a certain group side, but from a pure conscious state. We're gonna keep letting this play.
As a white man with his common law wife Hazel, she said she knew nothing about his past because he never mentioned his parents, whether or not he had siblings, where he went to school, or where he was born. In comparison, sociologist Erdman Beynon, who did a study on Farad's cult in the 1930s, wrote that hardly anything was known about his past, except that he claimed to be from the East and used many aliases, including the alias Ford, the alias he used while living in California with his white wife, Hazel.
Alright, so we read that whole chapter.
So, see, we're hearing different stories now because according to Elijah Muhammad, he said that Farad never had a wife. He never married. He never had children. And Elijah says that Farad told him that maybe one day he would have children. And maybe one day he would get married. Meanwhile, Elijah's supposed to became his roommate for like 3 years and a couple months. So this would means that if this is accurate, what he's saying, this would mean that Farad Muhammad lied for 3 years, stayed with a lie for 3 years. The shit don't make. God, he gotta be like a supreme liar to keep that lie going for 3 years. I just don't. But some of this shit don't make no sense to me. But let's keep it going though.
The book he's talking about right now, what he's showing you guys on the screen right now, we read the whole chapter in part 2. That's what I'm saying. If you guys just joined us, especially in this series, we're in part 3. Make sure to catch part 1 and 2 so you can be more informed and have a context and background to where we've been, what we said, what we've shown, and where we're going with the series, okay?
In keeping in step of not revealing anything about his past, in Detroit, Farad told his converts, quote, "Much about myself I will not reveal because the time is not right. You have not yet seen me in my royal robes." And to that point, they never saw him in his royal robes. Elijah Muhammad said he spent 3.5 years with Farad, day and night. Yet, he never knew where Farad lived. In Detroit, Farad would visit Elijah at his home to teach him all day and then leave at night, many times very late. In the FBI's investigation of Farad, A confidential informant reported that Elijah once tried to follow Farad after a long night of teaching to see where Farad lived. Elijah and his mother attempted to follow Farad one night when Farad noticed them trailing behind him. Farad picked up his pace, and as he approached the street corner, he quickly turned. A little while later, when Elijah and his mother got to the same corner, Farad was nowhere in sight. It turned out that Farad lived in a rented hotel room located at 1 West Jefferson Avenue in an all-white neighborhood, the same hotel he was arrested at.
Alright, so...
Okay, look, we're going to address this, that picture that was just shown, that mugshot. We got to get this out there. Just get this out the way right quick. Then we're going to let it keep going. My thing is, Elijah Muhammad offered them $100,000 to prove that Wallace Ford or Wallace Dodd person was Farad Muhammad. He said, bring him to me, and I'll question him on certain things that me and Farad discussed, where we were. He said, bring him to me to prove it. If you can prove it, I'll give you $100,000. This shit was never proven. The government, no official ever came forward. So, in other words, they got that card pulled. I'm just using common sense. 100 G's, I would have been on that shit. I would have proved it. I would have went and got this Wallace Ford dude, or Ford, whoever, and I would have got that easy money. Like, come on. We would have went and found his ass. All the resources the government got. Anyway, so I'm ruling that shit out. So I don't think that's the real image of Farad Muhammad, the one that the government giving people. I just don't believe that shit. 100 stacks. Shit, I'll say, you know what? Show me the money, and you got a deal. They ain't even try to ask no questions. I think it's like slander or some shit. I'm just using common sense here, y'all. All right, let's keep it pushing.
So you get what he's saying, right? He got followed and whatever, but he was staying in this hotel the whole time, right? And as you guys can see in this record right here, where it says color, W, right? Look at the funny thing about this. So 1933 and then 33, huh? 1933 and then 33. But he has color, right? Ford and, yeah. Alright, let's keep going.
On both occasions, when he was arrested.
Wait a minute now. I want y'all to check this out on this. You see Farad, Wallace D. Farad, 1933. This was supposed to be like, what is the resident hotel? I guess this is where he's supposed to be, where they caught him at. Age 33. So if he was supposed to be age 33, see this shit. So all these damn lies. So what is true? Okay, so if he was born in 1877, he would be older than 33. If he's 33 in 1933, that would mean that he was born in 1900. Okay, but it is claimed that he was born in 1877, February 26, I believe. So ain't none of this shit adding up. Y'all get what I'm trying to say? Charge. This person for, I can't even want inverts. I can't understand they writing. It says that, let me see where we at. Dismissed by police, no case. And this when he was arrested in 1933. Now, okay, so this is an authentic arrest because Elijah Muhammad claimed that he was arrested in 1933 too. And he's classified himself as white so he can blend with the Caucasian people. Probably using a white privilege because, you know, of course, white privilege is real. But we're going to keep it pushing. I want to see what's happening.
In Detroit in 1932 and 1933. Farad pretended to be white and lived among white people. But he also pretended to be black when he was running his con game on gullible black people and retreated at night to his rented hotel room in an all-white neighborhood. He had just gotten out of prison in 1929.
See, that shit right there, that's the part that get me. He just got out of prison in 1929. So let's say this is accurate. He been a rebel. He been a rebel. If this is accurate, these images, personally, I don't know. But I noticed like all the images that the government show of Farad Muhammad, he's got this mole on the side of his face. But you don't see the mole on the image of what the NOI gives. There's no mole or there's no little pimple on his face. So you'll see two separate convicted images of where he was, booked in by the police department of different times. But throughout the years, right? Different years, same little mole or pimple. It got to be a mole because a pimple ain't gonna last that damn long. So, but in the one, like I said, that the NOI give, that Elijah Muhammad the Great presents, you don't see that shit. I'm just like, okay, so something ain't adding up right here. Then the face is more oblong. The face in which we see from the NOI, it is more round, not oblong.
Didn't have a job. He was unemployed, which means he couldn't buy a home or rent an apartment. But he could hustle every day to rent an inexpensive hotel room on a daily basis.
Now, hold up, y'all. Just check this out. So we see the hairline, right, of Farad Muhammad. I just want y'all to pay attention. Now, this is supposed to be an authentic picture of Farad Muhammad amongst these government officials with one of his members. Okay, this is why they claim that he was practicing voodoo because they arrested him coming out that same hotel that they claim Elijah Muhammad followed him to. They claim that he was arrested coming out of there after one of his members sacrificed or killed another member in the name of Farad Muhammad, using some type of Nation of Islam ritual sacrifice book that he was going by. Now, I ain't never heard of no ritual sacrifice book. I ain't never heard of this shit, but this is what the government officials are claiming. And the guy has supposed to kill this man, sacrificed him in front of his own wife and children. Like going crazy. Stabbed him multiple times. So this was led back to Farad Muhammad, and this is why he's now seen right here explaining, I'm guessing his innocence, but some people say he's explaining his authority in the Bible or he's a Quran. But my thing is, right, when have you ever seen the government officials? I'm looking at this image, and when have you ever seen the government officials, right, this comfortable with somebody that they're claiming is behind a sacrifice or a murder? When have you ever seen somebody this comfortable, not in handcuffs? I mean, they sitting side by side like it's all good. It kind of make you wonder, was this some type of inside job? Is it a possibility that Farad Muhammad was government sent? I mean, these are questions that should be asked. You know what I'm saying? These are just questions. Because I ain't never seen, well, then again, he do got white privilege. Because he look white. He look like a Caucasian. But that hairline does not look like that same hairline. Wait a minute, let me see if I can go back a little bit. That hairline don't look nothing like that hairline right there, y'all. Different hairlines. It just don't look like it. I just don't see the same hairline. This is not the same image of the same person. I don't see the shit. I don't see the shit. Anyway, them, those are different people. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
Completing his daily scam of grifting money from poor gullible black converts by selling them useless so-called original names and gaudy ID cards. He would retreat to his rented hotel room in an all-white neighborhood where he had set up shop, then get up the next day and do the same thing again until he was eventually caught, arrested, and run out of town. When police first arrested him in November of 1932, the police confiscated hundreds of badly written letters spread all over his hotel room floor, with each correspondent requesting their original names and the promise to pay Farad for their original names.
Alright, so you guys heard that, right? What was he doing? He was making up money of creating these, nation ID cards, right, for the new members, and also telling them, well, don't worry, I'll change your fake name, your fake these are your last names, guys. These are your last names that would have connected you on genealogy to Indian families, if you knew it back then, if you knew. Most folks had forgotten, or they didn't care about, or they just thought it was part Indian, or whatever happened, back in those days. But he was literally sealing it, like saying, hey, yeah, these are not your names. I'll give you names. I'll name you X. I'll name you Muhammad. I'll name you Kareem. All that. This is why this is important. A lot of people think we're just trying to shame people. We're not. We're trying to help you understand something. These are your last names. These aren't your slave master names. I hope this.
Wait a minute. Let's just wait a minute. Now, this narrator, I gotta give it to him. The dude is a great scholar. He digs up information. I think his name Cameroon, something like that. He's awesome with the scholarship. But he don't know what the fuck he talking about. This Costa Rican. Everybody know that the names of the indigenous or so-called black men and women in America, they have slave owner last names. Most of them got slave owner first names. I don't know where he get this shit from. He need digging a bit more deeper with his research. But this part here, we know he got this shit wrong. Let's keep it pushing though.
There still isn't people that are following me and watching videos say, oh, I've been following you for years, still thinking that those last names you got are all slave names or from the white man. These are your last names. These people brought them, a lot of them melanated folks from Europe, so-called black folks from Europe, and they mixed in with the American Indians, giving them the surnames, right? In general, American Indians didn't have last names, They described themselves differently. But this was what's going on, right? Like all these, just like all these leaders coming out in the 1900s, early 1900s, always trying to kind of guide you and telling you you're from somewhere else. They're always doing the same thing, not just him, Harvey, Mr.Truth, Thomas Drew, telling you from somewhere else, not really specifying how much Indian you were. And yeah, they told you about black Europeans, but they're not making you really understand. That's you, not separate.
Now I agree with the part where you're talking about us being Indians or Native indigenous Americans. I believe that part. Yeah, I mean, there's documentation that we was reclassified as Negro, colored, mulatto, African American, and that part there, I can agree with that part. But as far as us, that name change, those are definitely not our original names. Smith, Jones, and all that shit, absolutely not. Those are Caucasian European names. So I don't know what the fuck he talking about with that.
From you, or that they came and mixed with the Indian, not explaining it correctly, and then still putting you somewhere else in the origin. Okay? Now let's continue.
Numerous blank ID cards were confiscated. Since Farad lived in a rented hotel room, where was he eating? Where was he cooking his food? Where was he washing his clothes? Turns out, Farad was eating by Elijah and his family every day when he went to so-called teach Elijah. Elijah's oldest daughter, Ethel, would wash Farad's clothes and cut his hair when he needed it. Recall that early NOI converts said Farad would never turn down a meal.
Now that's true. I listened to John Muhammad speak on that. He said that John Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's blood brother, biological brother, he said that Farad Muhammad, and Elijah would, on many occasions, sit at the dinner table and eat. And Farad would be answering his questions before he could even ask them, as if Farad Muhammad was telepathic. He said that Farad Muhammad could eat. He said, man, that man could eat. He said sometimes he would eat almost everything. He said those little rolls, biscuit rolls, Farad loved them. And he said sometimes Farad will go 3 and 4 days without eating at all. But now that part, that's accurate. And also John said he remembers sitting at the dinner table and Farad was talking about his mama. And he said that he used to knock coffee off the table on purpose just so she can clean it up because she was a devil. Now that part, I know he telling the truth about this part here.
Said he would eat whatever was on the plate. And after eating up everything, he would tell them, don't eat this, don't eat that. Your people in your homeland did not eat these foods. Under the pretense of being their savior, Farad used Elijah Muhammad and his family as a place to eat every day, hang out, and get his clothes washed. Besides the 1877 birth year that's only found in the Nation of Islam made-up theology, the FBI file shows 2 additional birth years used by Farad that perfectly align with the various ages he claimed at different points in his life. Farad also used 1891 and 1893 as birth years, totaling 5 different birth years.
Just hold up, wait, one goddamn minute. Let's just wait. So we got all these different aliases of Farad Muhammad. Goddamn. Portland, Mecca, New Zealand, race, white, Negro, American nationality, Arabian, New Zealand. Woo, we got look at this. Weight, 133, 135. Height, 5'6", 3/8. Then there's another one like it's like 5'8" or something. Eyes maroon, black. Complexion, dark, swarty. Okay, so my thing is this, right? We got all these lies, because if it's got to be lies. Got all these lies concerning his birthday when it comes to what the FBI is displaying, and from what appears to be what this Farad, or he's a Wallace dog, the fake, or may it be the real Farad is given. So I'm just thinking like, okay, so let's just say Elijah Muhammad's correct, and Farad Muhammad was the one to come to guide the original man back to the straight path. As the Muslims would say, the Sirata, how you say it? Sirat al-Mustaqim, or something like that. Sirat al-Mustaqim. The straight path, the straight and narrow path, right? I think it would be sufficient if he is the supreme being. Let's say if he's the supreme being, right? Let's say Elijah Muhammad, right? To mislead the devils, as Farad Muhammad called the Caucasian race. Why would you tell the truth, direct truth concerning who you are so that you can be tracked by the devils, knowing that they're going to be trying to track you and trace you after what you're doing that's against them? You're teaching their doom. You're telling these so-called black people in America that hey, I'm gonna destroy them. I would destroy them. I have a mothership that I built. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. He didn't say God's gonna do it. He said I'm gonna do it. This is what he's saying, right? Supreme wisdom lessons, Elijah Muhammad teaching all this. Supreme wisdom lessons written directly from Farad Muhammad. So my thing is, this would make sense to throw them off the trail, to give different birth dates, to give different birth locations of where he's from or born. I mean, if you're the supreme being, you're the best knower. As the Quran says, Allah is the best knower. And Elijah Muhammad is saying that this is Allah in person, Farad Muhammad. So it will only make sense this way, right? This is how I'm looking at this shit. Okay, we're going to keep it pushing, though. We're going to take it back just a little bit. We're going to keep it pushing.
Rod also used 1891 and 1893 as birth years, totaling 5 different birth years.
5 different.
He did not want to leave any trails that would lead back to who he was and where he was from.
Now this image right here, y'all. This is the one that the FBI or the government used to say it was Farad Muhammad. Now we know this ain't Farad Muhammad, just based off the damn hairline. We saw the original picture where he's sitting down with the government officials and one of the members of the Nation of Islam. We know this ain't Farad Muhammad. Okay, so we can just scratch that shit off. He don't even qualify. I don't know where they get this shit from. Anyway,
remember, he moved to northern and midwestern states to leave his past life behind. He wanted to bury his past. The irony of his marriage to the young Mexican in California was that on the marriage certificate as Wally Ford, he listed his mother's name as simply Baby G. 6 years later, Baby G would also be the name of Master Farad Muhammad's mother. Farad told early NOI converts in 1930 that his father's name was Alfonso and his mother's name was simply Baby G. Farad transferred events that happened in California into his Nation of Islam creation gumbo. Various real-life events in California became Nation of Islam doctrines and tenets. Another example of ingredients for his NOI gumbo was in 1917, before he saved up enough money to open a small cafe in Los Angeles, California. He lived in the boarding home of a white family owned by Emmanuel and Anna Bushes. He rented a room from them. This event became another part of the NOI mythological creation mixture. Years later, he would tell early NOI converts in 1930 that when he first came to America, he lived with a white family in Los Angeles, California, while he attended the University of Southern California.
Now that part true, as that corresponds with what Elijah Muhammad taught. He said that Farad claimed that he came in 1910, but he had been coming in and out of America from 1910 to like 1930 or something like that. In and out. That means he's been coming from in the country and out the country. So this could be, let's just say, he was convicted of all these accusations as far as like peddling dope, because they accused him of raping some 17-year-old, but the judge, they couldn't find any evidence, so they had to let him go. Then he said he moved again. So could this be the reason why he said he was moving in and out of the country to evade the government for all the things that he was accused of? I mean, have you ever looked at it this way? I mean, I see, all I'm trying to do is look at it from different perspectives. You see what I'm saying? It could make sense if you view it this way. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
Farad told them he was the product of mixed race parents. He said his father was black, but his mother was white.
Oh shit!
In
Wait a
Los
minute, y'all. Let me take it back.
He told them he had been educated for diplomatic services in London, England, at Oxford University, and could speak 16 languages and write in 10 of them. Because of his non-African American look, or his non-Caucasian American look, and strange teachings that were peppered
Y'all, them different people. Let's keep it pushing.
with Asian, Indian, Buddhist, and snippets of Muslim undertones. Of all the foreign countries he claimed as his origin, for example, New Zealand, Hawaii.
See, okay, we know all about all the 80s, all the aliens and shit. They just showed it with the documentation from the FBI. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Y'all see the mole on the side of the face of these two, so we know this is possibly the same person at different time frames. He looked younger to the left, look a little older to the right. Same person though. But in the other, because you ain't getting rid of that damn mole. Okay? But in the other picture of Farad, ain't no mole. And it's on the same side. That's the only side that they show that the NOI shows. You don't see no mole. I don't give a damn how clear you get that picture. You don't see no mole. And they ain't know nothing about no damn Photoshop back in that day. That Photoshop shit started in our time. Within this decade. Back in the 30s when no such thing as no Photoshop. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
Spain, Afghanistan, Arabia. He gave no hints as to where he was actually born. He didn't realize that living his poor day-to-day basic life of being a con man, grifter, and a pathological liar would make history.
Now let me say something right quick. See that hairline? That's the main giveaway. That hairline, the mole, and the dark spots up under the eyes. See, that's why I ain't buying these images. Because when you see that hairline, and you look at the authentic hairline of Farad, where he's sitting down with the government officials and the black guy, the so-called black man in the nation, it's totally different. So here, this narrator, I kind of sound like he's being slanderous. But we're going to keep listening to it, though.
And his birthplace would be the main discussion. Farad lied so extensively about everything until it's very possible that he never told the truth about anything.
Alright. We're gonna continue, guys. Hold on. Let me just get out the book. We're gonna get into a book now. I'm gonna read chapter 10 of this book. Hold on, let me just get the screen ready. Appreciate you guys joining. If you join late, make sure to catch up from the beginning. If you join late to this series, we're on part 3. Make sure to watch parts 1 and 2. It's gonna get...
So look, y'all see this? He's reading from this book, The Judas Factor. Now we know Judas was a betrayer. He was untrustworthy. So we know that this book is written from a biased standpoint. It's not written from a pure state of mind standpoint. But I feel that it is sufficient to even look inside both sides of the camp from a biased standpoint and from a pure state of consciousness standpoint, and also from somebody that personally knew Farad Muhammad. So what I'm doing is incorporating all of them. I'm incorporating what John Muhammad had to say, who knew Farad personally, and I'm incorporating what Elijah Muhammad had to say, who knew Farad personally, and I'm going to incorporate what the FBI and the devils had to say. I'm going to incorporate all of it and look at it from a pure state of consciousness point of view. Non-biased. I had to make a part 2 about this shit, though.
Get deeper and deeper, I would say, based on everything that even the connections it's going to have to Harvey, the more science temple, all that. So, Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Canaanite Temple. Yeah, stay tuned. Make sure you're caught up, too. Make sure you're caught up. We're going to get into this book real quick. I haven't even read it. I'm going to read it along with you. So, it says here, a shocking expose of the intelligence community secrets activities. It says the Judas Factor, the plot to kill Malcolm X, by Carl Evans. Carl Evans wrote extensively on Wallace, Farad, and the Nation of Islam doesn't approve of him too much. So we're going to go to a specific chapter. This is a very interesting book we might get into in the future, when it comes to Malcolm X, right? But we'll get into that. Don't worry. So we're going into chapter 10. It says here, exposing Farad. Okay, exposing Farad. It says the problem with telling a lie is that you've got to tell another lie to conceal the first one, and another to hide the last. Alright? That's from Minister Abraham X, Nation of Islam, St. Louis Mosque. Then it says, every son of Islam must gain a victory from a devil. 4 victories and the son will attain his reward. That meant 4, well, you guys will see. We went over that in part 1. That's why they were calling it the voodoo cult. People were literally, trying to go sacrifice so-called white people for them so they can get into,
See, this is what I was talking about. See, from Secret Ritual by Wallace D. Farad. I never heard of this book before. The Secret Ritual book in which one of the members sacrificed another person. I ain't never heard the Nation talk about this book. I ain't never heard Elijah Muhammad talk about it. There's some shit they trying to keep hid, apparently. Or either somebody lying. But I never heard them mention this shit. Never. Anyway, we're going to keep it pushing.
A free trip to Mecca and get into heaven. From Secret Ritual. That's from the Secret Ritual by Wallace D. Farad.
Now, hold up. Let me say this, though. Now, there is something that is in correlation to this. If you read the Supreme Wisdom Lessons by Farad Muhammad to his messenger Elijah Muhammad, it does say that every Muslim shall kill 4 devils, and they will be given a lapel upon their right, like up on their chest, a lapel, a button, and whoever bring back 4 devils dead shall get a free trip to Mecca. So there could be some truth to this shit. Let's keep it pushing, though.
Alright. Says here, white man is God for cult of Islam. This banner headline over a story in the August 15, 1959 issue of the New Crusader, a Chicago-based African-American newspaper, signaled the start of the FBI's second major counterintelligence offensive aimed at destroying the Nation of Islam. As stated earlier, the first campaign ended successfully in 1942 after the FBI hired black police officers as temporary FBI agents assigned to infiltrate the Nation of Islam. The article's author, Maud Yaqub Khan, an Orthodox Muslim of Pakistani origin, the fact that his middle name is that of the villain of the NOI demonology appears to be a coincidence. Yaqub had gotten his information from a selection of the FBI's file on Wallace Farad, which it released in response to the surge in the NOI membership that had followed the television broadcast they hate produced. The information the FBI provided to the New Crusader was incomplete but accurate. However, fortunately for Elijah Muhammad, as it turned out, the author misread the file on a number of crucial points. The article claimed, for example, that Elijah Muhammad and Wallace Farad had concocted the idea for the Nation of Islam when both were incarcerated in a federal prison in Milan, Michigan in 1943. It also claimed that Farad was Turkish and had been a Nazi agent during World War II. Hey, maybe there is something to this story right here. Nazi agent, huh? The agents of chaos around the world. The Khazars, huh? In fact, the sect was founded in Detroit during the economic drought occasioned by the Wall Street stock market crash of 1929, promising food, prosperity, and happiness to anyone who followed him. Wallace Farad Muhammad, the sect's founder, was able to attract hundreds to his meetings during any given week. The cult grew so rapidly that by 1934 there were nearly 7,000 members scattered across 5 states. Black Muslims were taught that Farad was a member of a rich, royal Arabian family who lived in Mecca. He had come from the East, he told them, to return America's former slaves, whom he called his long-lost uncles, first to Islam, then back to Africa, like Father Divine of New York, Noble Drew Ali of Chicago, and Bishop Sweet Daddy Grace of Washington, D.C., just like them. Wallace Farad Muhammad told his followers that he was God in a human form. Just like them, Posing as a silk peddler in 1930, Ford began knocking on the doors of African Americans and West Indians who lived the Detroit ghetto known as Paradise Valley. Most of them were among the many African Americans who left farms in the South stranded in the 30s by the receding tide of the Great Depression. These struggling new urbanites, lacking both formal education and street smarts, made a receptive, unquestioning audience for Fard's unusual ministry. Always introducing himself as Wallace Farad Muhammad, Fard was a sight to behold. His hair was straight and blacker than oil. He's straightening, remember? His skin was swarthy. Many African Americans mistook him for a Latino or an Arab. So when they're saying swarthy, they literally mean, like how he looked, like Middle Eastern, So again, swarthy, this is what we've learned. It can be used for any type of shade of dark, or even very light, dark complexion people. Okay? So, but they're saying here he could pass as Latino or Arab. Most likely was, As Detroit had America's largest Arab American community in the early 1930s, his eyes, one woman recalled, were an unusual color. They looked maroon, she said. He wore expensive-looking robes and usually either a maroon fez, or a turban. A fez, Selling silks seemed to be his ploy for recruiting new followers. As he sold his wares from door to door, he inquired about the individual's dietary habits. "Do you eat pork?" he would ask. The answer was invariably yes. Pork had become a staple of the African American's diet during slavery. Tosh the hijack. So remember, this book is written in the 1990s. He's still going with this author, even though he's exposing somebody, still shows his lack of knowledge of certain things, believing that he's also from Africa and the whole slavery story, right, out of Africa and West African slaves coming over here, and that every black folk was a slave. That's not true. Didn't we just read a book the other day? Free so-called African Americans of North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland. There's so many in there. And what happened? What did we find out about that so-called African American or free Negroes? They were Waccamaw Indians, right? They were Waccamaw Indian, Lumbees, and all these other Indian tribes. They were being reclassified as so-called free Negroes or African Americans. So again, a lot of context missing in the book, but we're just pulling out the babies, right? You gotta touch the hijacks. Be ready. You guys are well informed now. "Don't ever eat pork again," Farr replied hauntingly. He promised a potential convert that if she would invite him over for dinner, he would show her what to eat to live long, healthy life. So that's how he got inside the people's families, inside their homes, okay? Within 6 months, Farr had persuaded more than 500 African Americans to follow him. One of his first converts was a man named Elijah Poole, alright? Born October 7th, 1897. We got his tree almost done. I'm going to do a whole episode on Elijah Poole's genealogy, okay? Poole lived in Sanders.
You know what? Let me say something right quick. Well, my daughter coming up in there messing up my concentration. But let me just say this right quick. The story that Farad told that we all came from Africa. I always had a problem with that part because my parents told me that we was already over here. My mama said that most of her folks were Cherokees. My daddy's mama, Cherokee. My daddy's daddy, Geechee, from South Carolina. I've just always had an issue with some of this shit just don't make no sense. Like, we got the Cherokee Nation, Choctaw Nation. We know these indigenous so-called black people of America. But he never taught about us being from America. So, I now understand we've been reclassified and they got this out of Africa theory, which I totally disagree with, being that we was all, the landmasses was connected at one time, and we was scattered all over the earth simultaneously. We just chose to migrate into Africa, the majority of us, but we was already over here, and everywhere else. Then the Caucasians came and started pushing us out, killing every damn body, and reclassifying everybody. But the story I never really fully agreed with. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
Georgia, until he was 3 years old. His father, Willie Poole Sr., a Baptist minister, had been born in August 1866, the same year that the Congress passed the first monumental civil rights legislation and the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. His mother, Marie Cortez Evans, Cortez is her dad's name, so she's an Evans, was born in Cordell, Georgia in 1871. In 1899, the family moved back to Cordell, where Elijah began school. One afternoon before the winter break of 1907, while 10-year-old Elijah was walking back from school with a group of friends, an 18-year-old youth in the group decided to take a shortcut home. When the boy failed to return home by dusk, his father went to Elijah's home and asked Willie Poole Sr. whether he and his sons could help search for his son. In the woods surrounding the shortcut the boy had taken, they encountered the nightmare they had both dreaded. The boy dangled from a noose. His clothes had been ripped from his body, his face being so badly that it resembled a grotesque bloody mask. His neck seemed to stretch like rubber, and his body swung slowly in the autumn wind. So, as they're saying, unfortunately, most likely got lynched, hung, most likely by racist white folks.
Boy, what you mean most likely? He did, dumbass. Now, I'm going to say this. I heard Elijah Muhammad talking about this. Saw the video of Elijah Muhammad talking about this. He said he saw that sight of his friend dangling from a tree. And he said, as I stood there with tears in my eyes, he said, I pray to God that he grow me up so that I could get my people from amongst their enemies. Elijah Muhammad said that. So, it wasn't, he speculate that it was hung by some racists. He was hung by some racist ass, nothing ass motherfuckers. So I don't know what he talking about. See the way he critique his words. He got a biased point of view. Okay? These devils hung that innocent boy.
That was happening. It was a scene young Elijah would never forget. One that would take on special significance when he became a minister like his father. I cried all the way home, Elijah Muhammad said, in recalling the painful memory. Now remember, this is, you can see why he called the white man the devil, and why that when he heard Farad say that, it related to him, and I can understand that part. But, all that happened very late in the 1800s and early 1900s when so-called white folks were starting to take over and starting doing all these atrocities, disfranchising, murdering black folks, Before that, it was so-called Negro rule. You were the landowners. You had all the plantations. You were the people in Congress. You were the presidents. You were the Indians. You were the founding fathers. All right?
Now, let me stop him right quick right there. When they stepped foot over here in America, the Caucasians, they was already doing devilishment. What the fuck is he talking about? See, this dude is Costa Rican. They were doing devilishment when they first got over here. They killed like 17 million Native Americans. The rest of them, they reclassified them. We talking smallpox and all type of traumatic, mass genocidal type of stuff. That one incident did not put in Elijah that verification of Farad told him as them being devils. It was blatant back in them days that the Caucasian was a devilish type of people. It was common for them to mistreat black people the way they was doing it. We're talking about the indigenous black men and women and children hanging from one noose. Whole entire families. Babies being cut while women hung from trees out their stomach. Gruesome sights. Daily activity of racism. Calling black people the N-word. Little children having authority over a grown black man. What the fuck is he talking about? So he basically saying it's nothing for Elijah to accept after seeing that sight. Elijah had been hearing about this shit from his own parents. That's probably not the first sight he's seen something gruesome like that. Man, this man, see, that's that bias shit. He don't know the trauma of epigenetics that's passed through the so-called black American gene. He don't know it because he didn't experience it. He grew up in a whole nother society. So when Farad came teaching what he taught, of course it's nothing for us to accept that, the actual facts of what we've experienced. And him looking like a Caucasian, look just like a Caucasian. Going against the Caucasian. How can you not accept that? How can you not love somebody like that? Somebody that came to give you peace of mind after what your race has experienced. See, he can't accept it. He's a Costa Rican. He didn't go through that. Farad was not for him. Was not for no Costa Rican people. He was not designed for no Costa Rican people. He was designed for somebody that had been in servitude slavery and had been afflicted by a devilish race. So of course he's not going to be able to accept that. Because it's not designed for him. Of course he's going to speak from a biased point of view. Because his race didn't go through that traumatic experience. For centuries. So he really doesn't even qualify to speak on us, the indigenous people of America. He don't even qualify. Fuck is he talking about? But we're going to listen to it anyway because I like his scholarship.
Right? By 1914, Willie and Marie Poole had 14 children. Sam, Charles, Willie Jr., Tommy, Colette, Johnny, James, John, Herbert, Jarmine, Hattie, Lula, Annie, Emma, and of course, Elijah. Elijah took a job in 1914 at the sawmill where his father and some of his brothers worked. 5 years later, he married Clara Evans of Cordell from 1919 through 1923. Okay, so this is the Evans. My fault, guys. This is the Evans. From 1919 through 1923, Elijah remained at the sawmill even though he hated it. With children to feed, he couldn't afford to be out of work. Their first child, Emmanuel, was born on February 3rd, 1921, and a daughter, Ethel, was born the following year on October 24th. Nevertheless, Elijah abruptly quit his job in early 1923 after a white foreman persisted in calling him a dumb, lazy N-word and similar pejoratives, fearing that he would either kill or be killed. Elijah moved his family to Detroit in 1923, where he found employment on the assembly line at the American Nut Company. From late 1924 through early 1925, he worked at the American Copper and Brass Company in Detroit, then quit in July for a better paying job on the assembly line at the Chevrolet Axle Company. At the end of 1926, Elijah was laid off for reasons which were never made clear. It is possible, however, that he was terminated because of his political activities. Elijah had discovered Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association and is believed to have joined the Detroit branch. Okay? Not only...
Alright, I'm going to say something right quick because Elijah Muhammad denied all that. I just got to say this because I read what Elijah Muhammad said personally. He said that he was never a member of of Marcus Garvey. He was never a member of Noble Drew Ali, but he said that he visited the Moorish Science Temple, but he said he was never a member. So there's proof of that, but he was never a member of either one, according to him himself.
That there's pictures of him in the Moorish Science Temple, guys. We're gonna go over all that. All right, we're gonna look for those. We're gonna read that again. We've gone over this before. Who was coming out of this original Canaanite temple? Mr. Solomon created, not Drew Ali. but Julie was one of his, and Elijah was there, and Farad most likely was around too. For the next 3 years, he worked at odd jobs. Hey, so we're not talking about the Nazis, so let's stay on topic. Thank you. When Farad arrived at Poole's home one day during the winter of 1930, Poole had deeply down on his luck and had resorted to drowning his sorrows in bootleg liquor. So yeah, he was drinking a lot. There's a whole origin story on him. Before the Nation of Islam and getting arrested and things like that. Poole had told his children years later that my own wife was ashamed of me. At times she would have to go out and bring me in off the streets, holding me up on her shoulder. It was during this ebb in his life that Poole met the mysterious merchant from Mecca. One night after dinner at the Poole home, Farad told the man of the house that he wanted to share a secret with him. "You know me as Wallace Farad," the peddler said in a hushed tone. "But in truth, I am Allah, the Mahdi, whom everyone expected to come 2,000 years after Christ, who was crucified at Jerusalem." You guys hear that? So, he's related it to Jesus, not just Muhammad, but Jesus, right? Who got crucified in so-called Jerusalem. By the time Farad left the Poole's home that evening, he had converted Elijah Poole, the man who would become one of his chief assistants.
Now, this shit right here, y'all gotta make this make sense to me. I'm listening to all this information and I'm taking it in with a pure state of consciousness. I'm not being biased or nothing. But I'm listening at this information. If this man was a drug user or a drug pusher, as he claimed in the beginning of the video, as far as like the FBI or these criminal reports that they've documented from the police department, if this is the case, how would a drug pusher get a man off of drinking alcohol? Why would he be in support of that? Why wouldn't he be trying to push dope on the man where he see that the man is already at a low vibrational state that he can manipulate him into using drugs if he's a drug pusher? Y'all get what I'm saying? Somebody telling a goddamn lie. I believe they are lying on Farad Muhammad to slander him and to deter people from him. Why would I believe a race that has a long resume of devilishment toward the indigenous people? See, it's easy for a Costa Rican to say. Like I said, he doesn't have any ties or any traumatic experience dealing with this race of people for all the centuries like we, the indigenous people of America or the planet, has endured. See, he can only speak from a point of view of that which he knows and understands. He doesn't understand living right in the belly of the beast. He can't see it from that point of view. It's impossible because his people didn't endure it. Oh, let's keep pushing.
Farad charged new members $10 for an Arabic name to replace the surnames their families had borne since slavery. Since slavery, huh? Dodge the hijack. Not since slavery. That was their last names. This author's trying to say you guys got your last names from the white man.
And we did. I don't know what the fuck he talking about. The names were changed. That's common sense. Ain't no way we got the same name as them. I don't know what the fuck. See, this what me. I get an issue with this guy right here. Don't get me wrong, I love his scholarship. But this part right here, he has totally misconstrued. Totally misconstrued. I even had a Caucasian lady tell me at my job, she said it's an insult for y'all to have our last name. Because it shows that your people were owned by my people. That's what she told me. She said that's an insult to have those names. That came from a Caucasian lady. So what the hell is he talking about? Even she know this shit like everybody know this. He from Costa Rica. He live in Costa Rica. He don't understand this part. Let's keep pushing.
That's not true. Okay? After school paid the fees, his surname was changed to Karim. With the money his followers paid him for Arabic names, listen, he was making money of changing your names. That's the irony in that. Disconnecting you from your genealogy, your family history. With the money his followers
No, he was disconnecting you from your slave masters. Okay? It's common sense.
paid him for Arabic names, Farad opened a mosque in Detroit under the title of Temple of Islam. Bought himself a new car. He had a car now and lived very, very well at the Detroit hotel. That's what we just went over. He was living in a hotel where? In a white neighborhood. Elijah Kareem assumed leadership of the Detroit Mosque in 1931, while Farad traveled about the country opening new chapters. In late 1931, Elijah Kareem adopted a new name, Ghulam Ali. Farad, who taught his followers that Allah would automatically accept the soul of any non-white who murdered 4 Christians or Caucasians, became persona non grata in Detroit after a trial stemming from one of the most bizarre homicides in American history. Right? We went over this in part 1. On November 20, 1932, police discovered that a member of the Allah Temple of Islam had murdered one of his boarders on a makeshift altar in the living room of his home shortly before noon. As his children and 8 black Muslim witnesses watched Robert Kareem, like Elijah Kareem, he had received his name from Farad, ordered James Smith. His real last name was Harris, guys. Remember, we went over this. Harris, Robert Harris. Hey, possibly a Catawba.
His slave last name was Harris. We gonna make that shit clear.
Yeah, a lot of the Harrises go back to Saponi and Catawba Indians, right? Now he's a Muslim. Ordered James Smith. So he ordered James Smith to lie on the altar, which was nothing more than a heavy oak table covered by a white sheet. Smith lay down, but suddenly had a change of mind. When he tried to get up, Robert Kareem pulled part of a car's axle from beneath the sheet and struck Smith in the head, rendering him unconscious. As blood flowed from Smith's wound, Robert Kareem's children yelled and screamed in horror. He ordered his wife to quiet them. Wow. Quiet them down. Exactly 12 o'clock noon, Robert Kareem drove a butcher's knife through the heart of James Smith, a Christian, in an attempt to gain a victory against infidels for his gods. Frightened by the screaming, Robert Kareem's neighbors summoned police. Upon the interrogation of Robert Kareem, police discovered that his gods were in fact men. Robert Kareem.
Look, this the part right here that be getting me. Nation of Islam don't talk about this part. They act like this part right here hidden. I mean, to me, you should talk about it all. Explain it all. I mean, clear Farad it is. If he's supposed to be, a righteous God. Talk about this. This the part that it be. I'll be like, so they want to sweep this under the rug, They want to sweep this under the rug. Now we know that throughout the Old Testament, God is anthropomorphized as a human, as a man. The prophets the prophets in the Bible, their God is a man. The God of Abraham is a human. He's a man. And the only person that represented God as the God in the Bible of the prophets is Elijah Muhammad. The Christians don't do it. They say he's invisible, he's a spirit, he's a mystery God. Well, Farad Muhammad is a mystery too. Because all these different aliases we got going on, the place of origin, his date of birth, all this different stuff from the FBI files of all the misinformation concerning his whereabouts and who he really is. That's a mystery. But let's just keep it pushing.
Kareem identified them as Master Wallace, Farad Muhammad, and Ghulam Ali, alright, who was a.k.a. Elijah. Kareem, who told police his slave name was Robert Harris. Told you. Also, slave name, right? He's saying the Harris are all slave names, right? Also confessed that he intended to kill 3 more people in order to go to heaven. His other 3 prospective victims, Robert Kareem said, were Gladys Smith, no relation to the sacrificial victim, a 21-year-old welfare worker who had recently terminated his welfare benefits, and 2 Detroit lower court judges, the Honorable Edward J. Jeffries and Arthur E. Cord. During the examination of Robert Kareem's home, police found a booklet near the altar. It was entitled Secret Ritual of the Nation of Islam, and the author was Master Wallace Farad Muhammad.
See, this part I'm talking about. The NOI, Farrakhan, none of them talk about this shit. This the stuff I want to know about right here. What about this here secret ritual of the Nation of Islam by Wallace, Farad, Muhammad? See, this the shit that get me. Now, we know that the FBI and the government, they are against the Nation of Islam. We know that shit. I mean, just recently, a NYPD officer on his deathbed wrote a letter to his nephew or grandson, one of them, that they was behind the CIA, FBI, and the government, and the New York Police Department was behind the death of Malcolm X. So now Malcolm's daughter has a $100 million lawsuit against all of them, proving that the NOI had nothing to do with his murder, but yet they blamed it on the NOI, and they made it appear that the NOI did it. So we know they've always been against the NOI, trying to infiltrate, spying on Elijah, spying on Malcolm, recording his phone calls and stuff like that, listening to his conversations. We know that they've been trying to discourage people from the NOI. This is just common sense. But my thing, if they got this book, why don't they expose this book? Because it makes the nation, it would make the nation look bad. So I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they lying about this damn book, because the way that they function, they would be promoting this book as far as like propaganda to slander the NOI. But I don't hear nobody talking about this damn book in the NOI. And why isn't that, if these people, the CIA, the FBI, they've always been an enemy of these type of groups that would uplift the indigenous people, so-called black people. I just don't get why they're not exposing this book.
The next day, news of the sacrificial murder made front-page headlines in the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News. Detroit detectives Oscar Berry and Charles Snyder led a posse of policemen to the Temple of Islam, located above a clothing store on Hastings Street. They approached a short, thin, olive-skinned man at the lectern as he addressed approximately 100 African-American, Filipino, and West Indian males. "Are you Ghulam Ali?" Berry inquired. "Yes," the man replied. Berry then answered Ali if Robert Kareem was one of his followers. "Yes, Brother Kareem is one of my students," Ali said. "Remember, this is Elijah." "Then you're under arrest," Berry said. Ali was handcuffed and taken into custody. As Ali was being handcuffed, Snyder removed a pamphlet from the podium. It was a copy of the secret ritual of the Nation of Islam, the same booklet found in Kareem's home.
So where the fuck is this book? That's what I'm trying to get at, y'all. Where the book at?
Several days later, Farad was observed leaving his hotel room at 1 West Jefferson Avenue near the Hastings Street Temple and placed under arrest. He identified himself as God of the Temple of People and Chief of the Voodoos. The arresting officers claimed. That's what they claimed, right? He also freely admitted, they said, that Kareem and Ali were his followers, but denied any knowledge or approval of sacrificial killings. "They apparently misunderstood my teachings," Farad said absurdly. "Human sacrifice is not tolerated under Islam." But Farad's explanation was unconvincing. It belied what he had written in the manuals found in the possession of the Kareem and Ali. Farad's denial of his own teachings raised doubts in Ali's mind about Farad's integrity. And by Elijah, right, when they're saying Ali here. Their relationship decayed after Farad's arrest. Farad was taken into custody and placed in a room specially designed for dangerous criminals on the psychopathic ward at Detroit's receiving hospital. Ali and Kareem were also detained on the ward.
Hold on, y'all. See, the Nation of Islam don't talk about this either. That Farad was taken to a psychiatric ward at a Detroit's receiving hospital. They don't talk about none of this. They don't. I mean, like, this would be stuff that I would address if I'm in an NOI. You know, to let's bring this, let's pull it out the darkness and bring it to the light. Let's talk about this. Let's expose the truth that's in the lies. Let's let it be known. But they don't talk about this. They keep this swept up under the rug. So, but let me say this. So, you know, the nation, they teach us this, right? They teach that Malcolm taught it firm, Elijah taught it firmly. And remember, Elijah was taught by Farad Muhammad, and Malcolm was taught by Elijah Muhammad. So, they teach that never to be the aggressor. Never be the aggressor. Only defend yourself when one is trying to harm you. So this is not adding up with the teachings of the nation. But let's just we're gonna keep listening.
Not they those names though still were brought by a lot of black Europeans though, big low key. Well, I'm not gonna address the chat. I'm sorry for interrupting, guys. The only probe of Farad.
Now wait, he got a point there. Because a lot of those Huguenots, they came over here in America. And some of these so-called black people had slaves too. Okay? And they was giving names to some of these indentured slaves by some of these Huguenots. So I get where he going with that. But let's keep it going.
Hotel room detective discovered hundreds of letters from new members of the cult. Nearly every letter was identical in form and content. The writer asked Farad to substitute a slave name with Arabic one and enclose money to cover the expense of doing so. Files removed from Farad's room indicated that he routinely changed the surnames of his followers upon payment to names such as Ben, Bey, Muhammad, Karim, Pasha, and Ali. Alright, so again, just want to say, sorry to interrupt, guys, because sometimes I feel like I gotta address them, because people think I'm just trying to censor people or be rude or anything. If you feel emotional about something I'm saying, the research speaks for itself, and your genealogy will tell you. But let's not generalize. Alright, let's not generalize, okay? Catch up on the videos if you're still with that whole out of Africa or West African slave trade false narratives. I'll continue now. Hopefully no more interruptions. A week later, during a court hearing to determine their sanity, Ali and Farad were given an ultimatum. Disband the Temple of Islam or face charges of accessory to homicide. Ali agreed to remain in Detroit to oversee the dismantling of the cult. Detectives Barry and Snyder escorted Farad to the train station, placed him on the train bound for Chicago, and ordered him never to return to Detroit. On May 25, 1933, Farad found himself in trouble with the law again. According to the police report, Farad had returned to Detroit and was living at the Fraymore Hotel in Paradise Valley when he was taken into custody. He gave his occupation, the reporting officer claimed, as Chief of the Voodoos. He was arrested for disorderly conduct and again ordered to leave the city for good.
Okay, we're going to get this clip. Because I heard people say he was sent by the government. Couldn't have been sent by the government. Because if this was the case, they wouldn't have put him on the train and ordered him to leave again. So we could rule that out. He was not sent by the government. He was not an informant. We know that for a fact just based off common sense. Let's keep it pushing.
Alright, so he might have not said that because that's the police reporting, right? They might have added that. But that's funny if he did say that. Farad fled to Chicago where he was arrested in September for disorderly conduct. When then released on his personal reconnaissance. In December 1933, during an FBI investigation of a cult called the Society of the Development of Our Own, the SDOO, the FBI's Detroit Bureau discovered that Ali and the dissolved Temple of Islam had become involved with Satahota Takahashi. Listen to this, a member of the Black Dragon Society of Japan who founded the SDOO. This is true right here. This is true.
Before we continue, let's just say the FBI, they're classifying the NOI during that time in the 1930s as a voodoo cult based off this ritual sacrificing book that they claim was written by Farad Muhammad. So let's say this is the truth. They will be accurate as far as calling it that based off what they saw, gruesome scene of a sacrifice that took place. But let's continue.
You can look it up. Begun in 1901 in Japan by Buddhist monk named Uchida Ryohi, the The Black Dragon Society was a group dedicated to furthering Japanese imperial ambitions. While not an arm of the Japanese government, it had many friends in the Japanese government and armed forces, and was instrumental in Japan's invasion of Korea in 1910 and the subsequent seizure of Manchuria. To assist the society's aims, Takahashi entered the United States from Canada in 1930. He lived briefly in Tacoma, then for a short while in Seattle, and finally settled in Paradise Valley near Detroit. With access to seemingly limitless funds, the source of which sparked an FBI investigation, Takahashi was able to attract over 5,000 followers to the SDOO by early 1932, most of them African Americans, West Indians, East Indians, or Filipinos. Takahashi's influence upon the Nation of Islam was unmistakable. He was a frequent guest at the Nation of Islam's temples in Detroit and Chicago, and soon Ali, who was now using the name Elijah Muhammad, was peppering his speeches with pro-Japanese sentiments. The Japanese will slaughter the white man, the messenger said during a speech in 1933, a copy of which was later obtained by the FBI. It is Japan's duty to save you, he said in another lecture that year. Our brothers in the East, the Japanese, did not know that we, the blacks, were here until 60 years ago, he added. How would they not know that? That makes no sense. After finding out we were here, using the names of the devil, these all your last names, this is what Elijah Muhammad and Farad is saying, telling black folks that don't know a lot about history,
Okay, let's just say he right. Who would want the names of a race that enslaved them? Let's say, because we know the Huguenots, the black nobility, they traveled to the Americas. We know that. Okay? We know they've always been the puppeteers of the Caucasians. They've been the ones behind the shadows. We've learned that. Who would want their goddamn last name? They still slave owners. They still subjugated their own people. They are still a representation of Yaqub. They're still a representation of Enlil, the Sumerian deity or person or man that is against the indigenous people of Earth. They're still against them. So who would want to carry that name anyway? I don't give a shit what color he is or what color they is. Who would want the name? There's no honor in that. I don't know what the fuck he talking about. He need to kill that because he keep trying to tie that these names belong to us that Farad was trying to get rid of, as he rightly should have done.
Even lying to them, saying Japanese didn't know there was black people in America. Come on now. Elijah Muhammad said, remember, there's already been World War I, right, and a lot of other wars where black folks were being sent, right? Of course they knew there was black folks here. Come on. Anyways. So Elijah Muhammad said that those are your devil names, your last names. They at once went back and told the Asiatic nation. Then they knew where the lost brother was. Now they are only waiting on the word of the prophet Farad. The Japanese army and navy are already strong enough to destroy this devil. Takahashi's influence wasn't the sole reason Elijah Muhammad supported Japan's escalating conflict with the United States. As the messenger viewed it, they had a common enemy. White people, right? Or is it the government of the United States? So, you know what they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Hoover, upon discovering Takahashi's power base in Paradise Valley, decided to destroy the SDOO and the Nation of Islam first. After Takahashi's arrest, Ali fled to Chicago before he could be apprehended. In 1934, Detroit police learned that Farad and Elijah Muhammad had not only returned to the city, but had reorganized the Holy Temple of Islam. The cult had nearly 1,000 followers in Detroit alone and thousands more in Chicago, Los Angeles, and several other large cities. Now, what I want to say, in case you guys think this is a white man speaking, this is a so-called black brother who wrote this book. I'm going to show you a video of him talking, doing a little presentation on another part on Wallace, okay? Bored by Farad's antics, police this time used a little physical persuasion to entice Farad, as they said in police parlance at the time, to quit the city. It was the last time he was ever seen by most black Muslims.
Now let's see. Now these are questions that should be raised. Did they kill Farad Muhammad? This time did they just go ahead and get rid of him? Did they kill him? Did they deport him back to his origin from whence he came? See, these are questions that should be asked because nobody saw him again. But according to Wesley Muhammad, in his book, The Book of God, he claims that they searched for Farad Muhammad 40 years after his disappearance in 1934. And some of the officials claim that they saw him at different locations at the same time. They all claim that they saw him, but they could never get close enough to him to apprehend him. So I don't know how accurate this is, but I do know this is one of the most mysterious beings that we've documented in our time. He's a mystery man.
The August 15, 1959 story in The New Crusader portrayed Farad as a common and career criminal. His first arrest, the story stated, had come on November 17, 1918 in Los Angeles, when he was taken into custody for committing assault with a deadly weapon. This much was true, which cannot be said of the most alarming aspect of the story, at least to black.
Okay, let me say something. See, this is where the contradictions come in at, y'all. Farad taught his members not to carry weapons. He told them not to carry weapons. Meanwhile, he's carrying a weapon. I mean, there's some contradiction going on right there. But we're going to keep it pushing, though.
Muslims, all the allegation that Farad was himself a Caucasian, a member of the racial group he wanted eliminated from the face of the earth, right? Are we talking about self-hate here or what? What was going on? Right? Didn't he go by as so-called white in many cases, and when he was around white folks, oh yeah, I'm white like you guys. Elijah Muhammad, so-called messenger of the explosive religious cult that operates under the name of Temple of Islam with headquarters at 5335 South Greenwood Avenue, teaches his 70,000 odd Negro followers scattered across the U.S. that a white man called Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, who was a Turkish-born Nazi agent, worked for Hitler in World War II, is their God, charged by the FBI.
So, we see that the author has a biased standpoint and a negative connotation toward Elijah by calling him a so-called messenger of Farad Muhammad. We all know he was a messenger of Farad Muhammad, not so-called, because he taught what Farad taught him. That makes him a messenger. So we just see the biasness. We see that he's against Elijah. We see that his narration is in opposition of Elijah and Farad. He's not coming from a pure state of consciousness. He's coming from a biased standpoint. Let's keep it going.
Hey, if this is true or not, that would be crazy. What did the FBI know, But, again, part 2 of this series, we went over all the different possible origin and ethnicities of Wallace Farad. Go ahead and take a look at it. You see what makes more sense. Alright. So the revelations took Elijah Muhammad by surprise. Hey Jamal, I'ma just you're I'll just time you out. You're not blocked. Go. Jamal said, who else came to tell that they were the... Hey, listen. Just because that sounds music to your ears, that's the whole point. It's music to your ears, so he was able to gain a lot of following. Because black folks had been disfranchised and had forgotten they were. That doesn't mean they didn't know. A lot of them still knew. Alright, but again, using that to gain followers and then at the same time lying to them, changing their name, saying you're from somewhere else. What's up with all the added
Okay, let me say something right quick. Personally, this on a personal note, I could give a shit where somebody is from. I could care less where they from. I'm more concerned about what you're doing. How are you guiding the people? And this Farad Muhammad did a great job at. I'm forever grateful for Farad Muhammad for waking us up and pointing out who the enemy has always been. And back in them days, it was blatant. It was self-explanatory who the devil was. See, most of these racists, these race soldiers and white supremacists, they like to use the first thing they go to. They use reverse racism. And see, Farad is basing this off the present of the time in which he was in the past of their actions, their deeds. But these white supremacists go to is reverse racism. Your people kill your people. All people kill their own people. The Chinese kill the Chinese. The Japanese kill the Caucasians kill the Japanese. But the racist Caucasians like to point out that black people kill black people, black on black crime. But when you go to the FBI statistics, the leading in crime is the so-called Caucasian people. I already done viewed the shit already. Okay? So there is a racist standpoint that is against the indigenous people of America. So America is rooted in racism. Has always been and probably will always be. It's built, the foundation is built from racism, built from sin. Okay? So this here narrator, he needs to check in the author, and he also got his dates wrong right here too, where he said that in one paragraph it claimed that Elijah Muhammad met Farad in 1934. That's a lie too. I think he met him in 1930 or 1931. But anyway, we see what's happening.
False narratives. That doesn't mean anything, man. The revelations took Elijah Muhammad by surprise. Fortunately for him, the story in the New Crusader was riddled with demonstrable errors, obvious contradictions in one paragraph. It claimed that Elijah Muhammad had met Farad in 1934. Then in another, it had the two men meeting for the first time in prison in 1943. It also elevated Satahota Takahashi, founder of the Society for the Development of Our Own, to director of Japanese espionage in the United States. This was very far from the truth. Although there was substantive evidence to indicate Takahashi received help from several Japanese consulates in the East and in Los Angeles. The errors allowed Elijah Muhammad to discredit the article and the newspaper in his August 20, 1959 newspaper column for the Los Angeles Herald-Dispatch. Muhammad accused the African-American media of being dupes of their white god, who wrote false charges against him. They carefully picked out all the false and evil things said and wrote against me and my followers, Muhammad stated. He accused Time Magazine and U.S. News and World Report, which ran articles about the Farad allegations, of working in conjunction with the Ku Klux Klan to keep Negroes down. I mean, like Marcus Garvey had Ku Klux Klan friends? I mean, like Marcus Garvey, huh? I bet you Jamal will get mad at that too. I bet you Jamal hasn't seen my my Marcus Garvey video or my No More Misunderstanding series. No.
Okay, we're gonna get this we got to get this clear right away, because I know where some of y'all minds going. Yes, Elijah Muhammad had a meeting with the Ku Klux Klan. Of course he did, because the Ku Klux Klan, as well as Elijah Muhammad, who represented Farad Muhammad, was for total separation. And they themselves were working together on separating from each other. Okay? Dr. Frances Cress Welsing wrote a book called The ISIS Paper, where she states that one of the biggest fears of these race soldiers or these Caucasians is genetic annihilation through intermixing. They was against intermixing because we could genetically annihilate them through intermixing. So the clans were in direct correspondence with Elijah, and Elijah was in direct correspondence with them. So it was working together to separate it from each other, because they agreed on those terms, just like anybody with sense during that time would have done. Unlike somebody that would want you to sit in a restaurant and get beat upside your damn head trying to intermix with the damn devil. That's just stupid. You see, these people don't want you. They are rejecting you. They don't want nothing to do with you, but you trying to force yourself on them. Then you get shot, then get smothered in the hospital to death. Talking about Dr. King. His ideology was wrong. That's why he said he felt he was integrating his people into a burning building or a burning house. It was symbolic that he was going about doing it the wrong way. His ideology was wrong. In other words, he should have been thinking the same way Garvey, Malcolm, and Elijah was thinking. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
Malcolm X is isolating the errors, also denounced the story. No white man in America who knows his own history, Malcolm X said during a rally at New York's Rockland Palace on August 16, should ever charge anyone with teaching race hate or racial supremacy. Many African American owned newspapers, he added, must have never written anything about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's good works. But as Time magazine attacked them, many of these same papers, instead of checking with the Muslims to see if the charges were true or not, were satisfied to reprint and parrot the exact false charges of the white man. Alright, so this is before Malcolm went to Arabia, right, to Mecca, and found out something. Truth hit him in the face, then he came back a different man, and then he left the NOI, right, and he had some fallings with Farrakhan, and then what happened? Who's being blamed for his murder? That's a whole other thing. Alright, so, yeah. J. Edgar Hoover had been aware of Farad and his activities since 1931. 1 year after the Nation of Islam was established in Detroit that September, Hoover received a letter from President Herbert.
Wait a minute. J. Edgar Hoover been aware of his activities since 1931. Y'all ain't getting this shit. So, the FBI, because J. Edgar Hoover created the FBI. And it was created strictly it's created strictly for destroying the rise of a black messiah. Because Farad Muhammad triggered this in J. Edgar Hoover in the dark forces. So the FBI is going to mix truth with falsehood. So why would you take their word off face value as authentic? Because they was totally against these people. They were totally against the nation. So this is why you got to be careful where you take information from as being authentic when it comes to somebody that's against a people that could possibly become in power and do what has been done to them by their enemies. To their enemies. They're never going to give you the authentic truth concerning these leaders. They're going to discourage you. This is common sense, man. It's the art of war. Let's keep it pushing.
Hoover requesting the 31-year-old director of the Justice Department Bureau of Investigation, precursor to the FBI, to investigate a Chicago cult called the Moorish Science Temple of America. President Hoover made the request after receiving an invitation from the Grand Sheik of the Chicago branch of the Moors to address the annual gathering of the sect. Since the president...
So in other words, he was aware of even Noble Drew Ali. Because Noble Drew Ali was beat by the police officers while he was in prison. While he was locked up in a jail. So they've been aware of people like Marcus Garvey and Noble Drew Ali and Farad Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad. Every time we get a leader that rise up, there is a infiltration process that is started by the FBI, CIA, in the government to discourage people, to mislead people, to take the life of this leader. So why would we believe anything that these raggedy, low vibrational motherfuckers got to say about somebody that's in favor of us? Not a Costa Rican, not a foreigner, but the people or ancestors of those that have been facing mistreatment for centuries amongst these Caucasians. I'm just using common sense here, y'all. Let's keep it pushing, though.
I'd never heard of the group. He asked J. Edgar Hoover to determine whether the group was politically worthy of presidential attention or just another bunch of crackpots. Hoover deliberately misled the president by telling him that the sect had only one active member, the black barber, who extended the invitation. He knew full well that the Moorish Science Temple of America had over 50,000 followers with branches in nearly 30 cities. He apparently lied to prevent the president from addressing the group. Incidental to the Bureau's background checks on the MSTA, or Moorish Science Temple, the FBI's Chicago and Detroit bureaus learned from welfare workers that the Moorish Science Temple splinter groups had developed, and that one of them was known as the Holy Temple of Islam. Alright? Coming out of Moorish Science Temple. Future videos, we're going to talk about this again. Future episodes on this series. We've already talked about this before. The Holy Temple of Islam differed from the Moorish Science Temple of America. FBI investigators learned in that the former openly preached that white people were devils, and that it practiced a form of voodoo. J. Edgar Hoover, that's the hijack. This is what they're saying, right? J. Edgar Hoover, after advising the president against accepting the invitation, terminated his investigation. But during the Thanksgiving holidays a year later, Hoover reopened the investigation of what the FBI called the Allah Temple of Islam. The reason for the new probe was, of course, the sacrificial murder of James Smith by Robert Karim. In late 1957, after receiving reports alerting him to the explosion in the Nation of Islam's membership, the FBI's Chicago field office requested that Hoover renew the FBI's investigation of Farad. For the information of the Honolulu, Portland, and Washington field offices, the Chicago special agent in charge wrote in a memo to Hoover on October 3rd. As a result of a recent inspection of the Chicago office, it was suggested that a concerted effort be made to determine the whereabouts of W.D. Farad. Reportedly,
Okay, so this is what I read in same thing, right? So it goes to prove that Wesley Muhammad was correct in his book, The Book of God. He was correct because he says that they reopened the case and trying to find Farad Muhammad, but they could not find him. He said that they searched for him over 40 years, and everywhere they was looking, they was finding dead bodies or whatever. But this goes to prove that Wesley was correct in his scholarship, because right here we can clearly see that J. Edgar Hoover renewed the FBI investigation of Farad for the information of the Honolulu, Portland, and Washington field offices. So let's keep it going.
Founder of the Nation of Islam. During the investigation, the FBI discovered that Master Wallace Farad Muhammad was actually Wallace Ford. Listen, this is the part that Jamal and the rest of a lot of the members do not want to accept. He was this person. They try to say, no, that wasn't him. No, he actually was. Fingerprints and everything, and we got the records. Like even their own members tell you. That video I showed you earlier from Alam Khan. He's showing pictures of Wallace Ford mugshots. These are people, associating. So, someone.
See, I never heard of the fingerprints, but them fingerprints ain't gonna lie. But my thing is, if Elijah Muhammad is offering them $100,000 to prove this, why not prove the shit? Go and put them on blast and shut their ass down. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
Still don't want to accept. But yeah. During the investigation, the FBI discovered that Master Wallace Farad Muhammad was actually Wallace Ford, a Californian with an extensive criminal record. The FBI's attempt to chronicle Farad's background struck pay dirt on January 17, 1958, when it interviewed a woman who was Farad's common-law wife in the late 1920s. Hazel Ford Osborne Evelsizer, discovered by the FBI's Los Angeles field office, was a godsend. Using information from interviews with her, the Bureau was able to track Farad's years in America as far back as 1919, and in so doing, to demystify him. According to Osborne, whose maiden name was Hazel Barton, she had met a man named Wallace Ford in Los Angeles in 1919. Ford, whom she learned had come from Oregon around the beginning of World War I, was operating a small cafe on South Flower Street when they first met. Initially, she thought Ford was a very dark-complected Mexican. Later, as they began dating, she learned that his ancestry was more exotic. Ford, as the FBI later learned, was born in 1891 in Hawaii on February 25th. That's what he had told her. This was...
See what I'm talking about? It's so much shit. Now he born in Hawaii. He's operating a small cafe in South Flower Street. Meanwhile, I heard John Muhammad say that he worked in a pharmacy. That's what he worked at. But it's so much misinformation and ways of sidetracking people from a straight, narrow source to find who he really is. There's so much misinformation and offsetness that's just throw you off track.
Significant since black Muslims commemorate Savior's Day on February 26th. His father was Farad Ford, a Briton who had settled in New Zealand. But this is what he had told his wife. His mother, Beatrice Ford, was of Maori, a member of the very dark-skinned tribe of Polynesian origin, who in the early 1900s comprised more than 95% of the population of New Zealand. So literally...
Now this is the one that I remember listening to the NOI talk about this. This is the phony, the fake, the one that Elijah Muhammad offered him to prove was Farad Muhammad. The one that they're talking about, that he's talking about right now. Because according to Elijah Muhammad, he said Farad Muhammad never married a woman. He never had children, nor was he ever married. But he told Elijah that maybe one day he would get married and have children. So, I mean, unless Farad was lying and they tell the truth. But first of all, personally, I'm not going to believe the FBI when it comes to black people. They lie too fucking much. They've always had a hidden agenda to destroy our leaders. So, personally, I feel like this is some bullshit. Let's keep it pushing on.
A backward story. In this case, he told his ex-wife that his dad was the white one and his mom was the so-called black one. Right? Unlike what Elijah and supposedly Farad told Elijah, we're going off what Elijah said. Alright, so as you guys can see, we've gone over the different origin stories. We've gone over this on part 1 and 2. Make sure you're caught up. He was semi-literate. Evelsi, sir, then Barton said, and she frequently wrote letters for him to his parents in New Zealand. On one occasion, while snooping through his dresser drawers, she found a letter addressed to Fred Dodd. She knew, she said, from reading the letter that Fred Dodd and Wallace Ford were identical. When they first met, Evel Sizer said Ford was living with another woman, by whom he had fathered a child, a boy. After Evel Sizer began dating him, Ford asked his wife for a divorce, but she refused. Furious, Ford finally left her and the boy and moved in with Evel Sizer. Ford and Evel Sizer began living together from 1920 and she bore him a son. I got his image, I got his picture right here. He died very young, with Hazel, the son he had with Hazel. In 1926, Ford and Edward Donaldson, one of his Chinese cohorts, were arrested for conspiring to illegally sell a pint of bootleg to a police office. See, they were selling liquor during Prohibition, gangster stuff.
See what I'm talking about? The shit don't add up. If he's selling liquor and bootlegging, he would have sold that shit to Elijah if Elijah was an alcoholic at the time. This shit don't make no sense at all. These motherfuckers lying. He was doing it to make a come up, so why not sell that shit to Elijah? Shit ain't adding up, man. I got common damn sense. Anyway, let's keep it pushing. They done gave Farad Muhammad children. He committing adultery according to these laws in society today. Having children out of wedlock. You know what I mean? Abandoning his family and... this shit ain't adding up. All the stuff that he taught Elijah Muhammad in the nation to live by, and he was doing all the opposite of that, get the fuck out of here. I just ain't buying that shit. This shit don't make no sense to me. Let's keep it pushing. And then when you listen to some of the ladies, the secretaries that was amongst Farad, they was talking about how disciplined he was. They never seen somebody so disciplined in their life. These motherfuckers lying. The man that they're talking about right here has no discipline. He has no emotional intelligence. He's leaving his family behind, creating new families, making children and stuff out of wedlock. Come on, man. Make it make sense. I'll make it make sense. This is not the one that represented the Nation of Islam. This is somebody else. I'm using common sense. I don't care about where he come from, his origin, none of that. I'm looking at the formation and the formula of these. I see two different individuals when I look at that pattern in the way of their life, the way it's structured. And it's common sense based. These are two different individuals. The one that the FBI is presenting is somebody totally different. The one that Elijah Muhammad is presenting is somebody totally different. These are Total oppositions. Total different people. Let's keep it pushing.
You know, like the mafia and all that. In violation of the Prohibition Act, Ford paid a $40 fine. But before his court appearance on the bootleg charge, Ford was arrested for illegally selling heroin. Listen.
See what I'm talking about? This the shit I'm talking about. It don't make no sense. Ain't none of this shit adding up. Farad Muhammad took the people off of drugs. Elijah Muhammad took people, and remember, Elijah's a representation of Farad. Elijah Muhammad took people off of drugs. He took his people off of drugs. So if he's dispute, it don't make no sense at all. Period. If you got common sense, you can see clear through the bullshit. It don't make no sense. He took him off the drugs. But yet this one that he's presenting right now, he's a drug dealer. He bootlegging liquor, selling it to people. Get the fuck out of here. Let's keep it pushing.
Heroin in violation of the California State Poison Act. Wow. And there's sources for this. Following his conviction.
So these sources, right? These sources coming from a racist motherfucker. Guarantee you that. So you mean to tell me Farad Muhammad, if I'm to believe this, Farad Muhammad is a drug dealer, a bootlegger, an adulteress, a fornicator. He's abandoning his one family and creating another family. So they're basically telling me, and they're basically selling and telling something that is opposite of what Elijah Muhammad presented to the black nation in America. They're basically saying Farad Muhammad wasn't shit, if I'm to believe what they're saying. Meanwhile, what Elijah Muhammad represents is discipline, is nation building, it's cleanliness, it's taken away from prostitution, taken away from alcohol, drugs. Can't even become a member of the nation and be a part of the nation unless you are clean of drugs and alcohol. Make this shit make sense. These motherfuckers lying. I don't give a fuck how they dress it up. How much little documentation they got coming from the enemy? You think I'm gonna believe a race of devils that have mistreated my race, the indigenous people? He looking at this shit from a Costa Rican point of view. Like I said, he has no tie. He has no traumatic epigenetic in his genes of these people, how they done our people, the indigenous people. He can't see it with a clear view. He's looking at it from a biased standpoint. He already started off with a negative incantation toward Farad Muhammad. His information that he's digging up is from people that have an objective point of view, an opposition point of view toward the Nation of Islam. He's reading from these books, which I have no problem with because I want to see it from all different sides. But it just goes to show you his biased point of view. Let's keep it pushing.
Ford was sent to San Quentin, where he remained until May 27, 1929. Alright, hold on guys. So, PBC says, you're gonna get blocked now. But anyways, he was doing the same thing N-word do now. He ain't giving out all his info to nobody, especially when he had the loss. So you're making an excuse and conjecturing. You're making an excuse for him. Wow. Man, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, the law, why is the law after you? Why are you doing that in the first place then? If you're so-called Allah, if you're Jesus, the second coming. Make it make sense, man. Alright, make it make sense, man. Again, if you're brave enough, you think you're gonna come try to debunk me, you're gonna get blocked right away. Don't interrupt.
So he don't want nobody challenging his information. So I could tell right now this guy, again, I love his scholarship, but he has a biased point of view. He doesn't want to be challenged when it comes to what he's reading in his commentary. His ego gets hurt real fast when it comes to somebody challenging what he has to say. So he's forcefully trying to push a narrative on people that Farad Muhammad is not whom Elijah Muhammad claims he is. Meanwhile, Elijah Muhammad knew the man personally for 3 years. Even John Muhammad knew the man. But they have something totally different to say about Farad Muhammad, other than what has been presented by these documented FBI files and what he's reading from somebody that has a negative perspective toward Farad Muhammad and even Elijah Muhammad. Let's keep it pushing though.
So within a week of his release, Ford left Los Angeles and moved to the predominantly African-American section of Chicago. He found a job there selling medical supplies. Although Ford had severed their relationship, evil sides are
Okay. Now that's some truth coming out from what John Muhammad said, selling medical supplies. So this is the part where John said he was working as a pharmacist or something like that. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
That they corresponded from the time he left Los Angeles until 1932, which coincided with Ford's arrest in Detroit. She mailed her letters to him, she said, in care of general delivery, in either Chicago or Detroit, which also happened to be the locations of the two most active temples of the Nation of Islam. Ford never complied with her request for regularly scheduled child support, although he sent her considerable amounts of money from time to time. Again, we're going to go over those records when he was living with this person and the other wife. We've showed it on, I believe, part 1. So make sure to catch that again. There's a whole other section of another book we're going to read on his, his genealogy, his history. So, stay tuned for that on future parts of this, right? Evil Sizer recalled that when last you saw Ford in 1932, he was driving a 1929 model, a Ford Coupe with California license plates. She said he had white silk sheets over the seat of the car, and when she asked about them, he told her that she could have them. He wouldn't be needing them anymore, he said, because he was returning to his parents in New Zealand. Another fake origin story. Perhaps most notably, Ford mentioned to Evil Sizer that he now ate only one meal a day, the standard black Muslim practice, and told her that this was his new way of life.
So look, one thing I noticed about these ascended beings, even Count Saint Germain, they never did give you their place of origin, where they come from. I don't know what it is. They don't want to be traced for a certain reason. I believe these are the beings of the exalted assembly. These are the higher echelon beings. They will never give you that place of origin so you can track them and put a target on them. I mean, this is wisdom. This is a wise decision to make. Let's keep it pushing though.
With the information from Evil Sizer in hand, the FBI's Los Angeles field office contacted the Detroit FBI office and requested that it interview Erdman D. Bainan, who had written a study of the Nation of Islam in 1937. That's what we read on part 1, that article he wrote. After tracking down Bainan's relatives, FBI agents learned that he had died some time ago. Wow. But that his daughter Marion Kieber, who had gone along with him on his journeys into the darkest African America, was familiar with the Nation of Islam. What does that mean? On February 11, 1958, FBI agents showed Kieber 2 mugshots of Ford, one taken upon his arrest in California in 1926, the other taken in Detroit in 1933. She had vivid memories of Ford indeed. Few ever forgot his striking appearance, and she said both photographs closely resembled the man she had known by that name. When agents showed her the portrait of Ford, she said there was no doubt in her mind that Ford and Ford were the same man. Okay, and that's the pictures I have on the cover or the thumbnail of part 1 and part 2 that they're talking about right now. The one on part 3 right now is another mugshot with his haircut.
So I remember reading what Wesley Muhammad said. Wesley said the lady claimed that they were not the same. When she saw the picture of the one that Elijah Muhammad had presented and the one that the FBI presented, she said they were not the same. So I don't know what he's talking about. I'm thinking, okay, he got to be talking about the phony picture that they offered Elijah Muhammad to prove. Anyway, let's keep it pushing.
After spending the next 2 months hunting Ford without success, the Chicago field office which coordinated the COINTELPRO, notified Hoover that it was abandoning its efforts. The investigation into Farad's identity remained dormant until September 1962, when the House Un-American Activities Committee decided to hold hearings on the alleged subversive activities of the Nation of Islam. Congressman Francis Walter, chairman of HUAC, asked Hoover for the FBI's files on the Nation of Islam, particularly anything it had on Farad. Alright guys, hold on, let me just look at the chat.
Okay, I gotta say something right quick. So, we can rule it out that they killed Farad in 1934. They didn't kill him. Otherwise, why would they keep searching for him? They keep bringing up something that's become dormant, and they keep reopening up these cases to find Farad Muhammad. You see? So we know he had no ties with the government. He couldn't have had no ties with the government because they're still looking for him. And we know that's based off common sense that they didn't kill him. But let's keep pushing. I mean, all we know, they might still be looking for him.
Yeah, see, Tony, go be a crybaby, go be a herd troll somewhere else, man. This is what I'm saying. I'm gonna go debate people who have a religious mind state. You're stuck on belief like a religious, it's like going up to, a Hindu and saying, hey, Krishna's not this, or like going up to a Christian and say, hey, Jesus is not this. It's the same thing, man. Yeah, get out of my channel, man. You haven't been here the last 8 years, man. Eventually, this is all be mainstream one day. You'll see. You'll remember. After receiving the startling information on Farad, notably the fact that his father was a Caucasian, Walter and Congressman L. Mendel Rivers concluded that HUAC could successfully disrupt and curb the growth of NOI if the information on Farad was released to the media at an opportune time. Cognitive dissonance, man. In February 1963, the Chicago field office learned from wiretaps and its informant inside the NOI that Elijah Muhammad was still too ill to address his followers at the upcoming annual Savior's Day convention. The informant advised the FBI that...
Let's go back. Let's read it.
Cognitive dissonance, man. In February 1963, the Chicago field office learned from wiretaps and its informant inside the NOI that Elijah...
Okay, y'all hear that? They learned from wiretaps. They've been tracking the NOI. They've been sneaking, listening in on the NOI. They've been trying to infiltrate the NOI. They've been trying to overthrow the NOI. They've been trying to stop the rise of a black messiah. Remember, this shit go back to 1931, all the way back to Noble Jew Ali and Marcus Garvey, where they had some type of counter program to stop the rise of these black leaders in the black nation in America. They've been trying to do this shit. So why would you believe anything the FBI has to say concerning these leaders or these people that was for the betterment and upliftment of the so-called black man and woman in America? If you got something negative to say concerning these type of people that done a great thing for the indigenous people of America, for the indigenous people of the planet that live in America, your opinions is totally irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Because, first of all, we listening to a foreigner talk right now. So he don't understand. He will never understand. But let's keep it pushing, because it's scholarship good, though. We're gonna keep it pushing.
Muhammad was still too ill to address his followers at the upcoming annual Savior's Day convention. The informant advised the FBI that Malcolm X would speak on Muhammad's behalf. On February 19th, Hoover sent a memo to the Chicago field office which stated that now was the time to use the dossier on Farad to neutralize the NOI.
Exactly.
If they leaked the dossier to his friends in the media, Hoover wrote, the impact on Elijah Muhammad and his followers would be tremendous, and the story could well serve to make Muhammad appear ridiculous.
Exactly.
Before releasing the...
So why in the fuck would y'all believe what the FBI has to say concerning the truth about Farad Muhammad, as far as his whereabouts, his appearance, his teachings, the wife and children that he supposedly had. Like, why? I mean, it's clearly saying that they want to make Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam look ridiculous. So, of course, they're going to make up all these false allegations concerning Farad Muhammad. Because, like I said in the midst of this video, it don't make no sense for this man to be a drug dealer, pushing alcohol, to not to push his own the Nation of Islam and turn them all the way out to make a profit. Meanwhile, he taught them against all this stuff that they're claiming that he was doing. These motherfuckers is lying. And if you got any common sense, you would be able to see right through the dumb shit. These people are biased, they're slanderous, and they should be sued for slandering Farad Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad. And I'm looking at this strictly from a pure state of consciousness. Let's keep it pushing.
Story: a final attempt was made to track Donaldson, the Chinese gentleman arrested with Farad in 1926. In May, after 3 long months of tracking Donaldson, the search was abandoned. And yes, definitely, after a while, the FBI is literally trying its hardest to dismantle the Nation of Islam. We're not arguing that, but what people are having a...
No, yes, we are arguing that, because you've been talking about a Farad, Dodd, Wallace, Ford. You've been talking about this motherfucker damn near whole video, and he's totally the opposite of what he taught the NOI. He's totally the opposite. His ways are totally the opposite of what he taught the NOI. And the way that the secretaries and the people of that time knew him as. Totally different people. So yeah, we talking about what your ass say that we ain't talking about.
Our time is
Let's go back.
Literally trying his hardest to dismantle the Nation of Islam.
Okay.
We're not arguing that.
Yes, we is.
But what people are having a hard time is understanding who Farad, was, the man before he came to Detroit, and none of y'all can tell or prove his origin. This ain't a debate. This is what I'm saying. People think you could debate stuff like this, like saying the sky is purple.
The origin is a mystery. You think a God, let's say he is God, even if he ain't a God, if he's a representation of a God and he's claiming that he's a supreme being, you ain't gonna be able to track his origin. So you could put a target on him and his people and his personal immediate family members. That would be idiotic. That's just common damn sense. If I'm Allah and I'm the best knower, of course I'm gonna leave breadcrumbs to mislead you of my origin. You think I'm about to allow you to track me? Dude, use common sense. Come on, Cameroon, or whatever your name's supposed to be. You gotta use common sense, man. Let's keep it pushing.
You're trying to debate me, the sky ain't blue. I'm not gonna waste my time. Debating is for you guys who do that. I know y'all do that all the time on your other channels. Entertaining people trying to get views. We don't do that here. The research speaks for itself. We're on part 3 already, and I got a lot more parts coming.
See, this is the thing. He's taking research from an uncredible source. He's taking research from what we just read, a source that is trying to discredit Elijah Muhammad and make him appear ridiculous. See, listen to this. If they leaked the dozier to his friends in the media, Hoover wrote, the impact on Elijah Muhammad and his followers would be tremendous, and the story could well serve to make Muhammad appear ridiculous. See what I'm saying? This was intentional to discredit the Nation of Islam. It's on purpose to turn people from Farad Muhammad. It's false allegations is what I'm saying. Let's keep it pushing.
Yeah, be ready to be more hurt.
That's all I'm saying. I'm using common sense.
In the meantime, Malcolm X's prominence in the national media had risen sharply, so much so that he now overshadowed Elijah Muhammad. By July, Hoover had firm evidence that Malcolm X's popularity had precipitated intense jealousy on the part of Muhammad's sons, Herbert and Wallace. Hoover decided that it was time to take advantage of the rivalry, and by doing so,
Exactly.
forced Malcolm X out of the Nation of Islam.
Exactly. That's it. I don't even want to hear no more because we know how the rest of this go. My point is of this video is to listen at it from a clear perspective and give my unbiased commentary on Farad Muhammad, the mystery man, and what he represented and what he taught, despite what the FBI and Caucasians wanted to display to deter people from the teachings that were blatant that the white man was the devil. We're talking about the time frame in which Farad was present. It was clear that the Caucasian was the devil. Today is skeptical, okay? But during that time, we all knew, indigenous people knew that they were a race of devils. It was very clear. It was very self-explanatory. So, I'm ruling out the fact that this Wallace Dodd, 1926, 1929, 1920s, is actually the Farad Muhammad that Elijah Muhammad represented. I just don't see it. Okay? Again, I could care less of his origin. The man say he was from Mecca, the man say he was from Mecca. That's what he taught Elijah Muhammad. Of course he gonna lie to the devils so that they can't pinpoint his origin. Who would? I mean, why in the hell would you tell these people this when you talking all this shit about them, exposing their true origin, their true purpose? You're telling this black nation of people that you're going to destroy them with a mothership. So why would you give them your origin, your location, so they can target you and dismantle your operation? Of course you're going to mislead them. Of course you're going to lie to them. It's common sense if you got any damn sense. You talk about a mothership that's going to destroy America, that's going to destroy England with 3 bombs. Going to make one swoop through America and England, it's going to be all but done away with. You're going to destroy the Caucasian nation and put the black man back on his feet. That which was first, that is now last, is going to be back on top again. You teaching all this stuff. Of course you're going to mislead this devil. Why would you give him your place and your operation that he could pinpoint you? Come on, man. Common sense, dude. Come on, Cameroon. Use common sense. Anyway, we're going to end this video here. I might do another part on this because this shit interesting. Until then, y'all stay focused. Don't let this shit mislead y'all with beautiful words how people can claim they got documentation. Always pay attention to where the source is coming from of it being documented. Okay, if it's coming from you got to think about the times of which stuff is documented and who's documenting it. You got to think about who's displaying it and who are the people that they're aimed against. You got to think about all this and the people that they're actually with, that they're standing for. We're talking about a racist standpoint of view concerning a nation that had been downtrodden, a nation that had been overthrown, conquered, colonized, enslaved. We're talking about a people that represents white supremacy and sees another race as inferior. And they never want this race to be on top. They didn't even allow us to read at one time. Okay? So let's just keep it a buck. Look at it with a clear, intelligent lens. Until then, peace, y'all.